Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with This Week in Cannabis News from September 26th to October 2nd. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video and you learn something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos. And there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you feel ready if you wish to do so. And so we're going to start with some news out of Washington. Now keep in mind this is still a lot of speculation, but all I'm really trying to do is grab all the pieces together, put them in one place so that we can try and paint somewhat of an accurate picture just given all of the moving puzzle pieces. And so take this with a grain of salt, but if you happen to know more about any of these developments, please let us know in the comments. And so without further ado, Nats Fertig, who writes for Politico, shares at 1 p.m. as of September 29th, new Senator Grassley tells me his cannabis research bill is in hot line, meaning a floor vote could happen before the end of the day. But keep in mind, this research bill is the one that is backed by Prohibitionists. And so this would be another prime example of the Senate working for the Prohibitionists as opposed to the American people if this research bill gets a vote before the Safe Banking Act. Because clearly, the cannabis industry is here, it's not going anywhere. You might as well pass SAFE to make America safer before this research bill. But obviously, we do want to see a bill passed that will enable more research, but we don't want it to be the ones backed by Prohibitionists. But regardless, I digress just to share the news. This bill passed the House in July, so it could be the first standalone weed bill to pass Congress. And again, it's, in terms of perspective, it sounds great because this could be weed research, yes, but again, who's backing it? That makes it a little less settling. But with that, Tom Engel shares, so as of 2 p.m. September 29th, breaking bipartisan Senate leaders have taken steps to expedite a vote on the cannabis research bill today, but GOP Senator John Cornyn, so thank you John Cornyn, has objected for reasons his office wouldn't explain to Cannabis Moment, pending the plan for now. And again, I only say this because we know that the Prohibitionists are backing this research bill. And so if we scroll down, updated from Tom Engel, according to a source on Capitol Hill, Cornyn is objected to unanimous consent requests on all House bills today because he's upset that Chamber hasn't acted on more of his own legislation that hasn't been sent over. Again, personal reasons outweighing the will of the American people. So cannabis is being caught in the crossfire, but again, this is a bill backed by Prohibitionists, and so I don't necessarily believe it is in the best interest for the American people, and so for that reason, I'm fine with this being delayed. So just wanted to relay that. So if you do know more, let me know in the comments. But with that, Tom Engel shares new. Senator Ron Wyden has filed 2 new NDAA amendments to protect people from being denied security clearances for cannabis, which thank you, Senator Wyden, for stepping up and doing this. At least this comes as new objections from GOP senators caused a cannabis provision Wyden got approved in committee to be stripped out. And so again, all the stories mentioned, you can grab the link below, but there's just so much news. I just want to try and run through it. And if you're interested, you can read the stories. Everything will be in the description. But just an update, Wyden tells Marijuana Moment, and I think this is very true and good point for Wyden to make this. Our national security depends on the intelligence community's ability to recruit the best people for the job. So if they consume cannabis in their spare time, but that's the only thing that they're doing, that should not prevent them if they're the best candidate for the job for America, right? And so I hope Senate Republicans will get out of the way and get on board so that we can make these common sense reforms. And I do agree with Ron Wyden on that. So thanks, Ron, for at least getting that going. And with that, just wanted to share this from Bryant Harris, who says that the Senate is scheduled to vote on the NDAA and amendments in October. So it's pretty fucking wild that we're already at October again. This does mean that we're closer than ever to finding out the fate of SAFE in this year's NDAA. And the good news is, despite the fact that last year Schumer pulled SAFE out of the NDAA because he works for Big Pharma and not the American people, at least we know that SAFE has again made it into the House version of the NDAA, and so while the Senate is going to vote on their version in October, it likely won't include SAFE, but the good news is when they go in the conference process, they have to compromise on the bills. And so if the House has it and the Senate doesn't, it means that there's a 50-50 chance, again, much like last year. And so again, just relaying what we know. If you happen to know more, let me know in the comments. But with that, just wanted to share Senate Cloakroom tweeting that vote forecast leader Schumer announced that the next roll call vote will occur on Monday, November 14th at 5:30 p.m. And so I don't necessarily know what this vote is for, but just sharing it because at least we could see some sort of action get done. Unlikely based on what we've seen in the past and based on Schumer's actions. He's a complete hypocrite, as he's proven to us to be the epitome of a lying sack of shit politician. But with that, I just wanted to share this funny meme from Sabatino. As Senate Majority Leader, I can make you bleed as much as I want for as long as I want. But just wanted to share this. They are going to vote on cannabis. We don't know. We hope so. All we can do is try and stay on the ball and watch out what is going to unfold. But this would be after the election, and so this obviously depends on what happens in early November. If there's a red wave, more likely that the lame duck will push SAFE actually getting through, given all the factors and the recent rumors that we've heard of SAFE possibly passing during a lame duck session. So with that, some new developments that obviously highlight the benefits of ending cannabis prohibition and why the U.S. should do it sooner than later. As Marijuana Moment shares, federal cannabis prohibition is putting patients at risk of consuming contaminated products, study finds. Of course, researchers called for a national level guideline on the contaminated regulations of cannabis. Just deschedule it and let the states do what they want, and so that we can have safe products for American citizens who need a safer, non-addictive alternative or just want to relax with recreational cannabis. And so more on this study if you wanted to grab the link below. But with that, thanks Tom Engel for sharing this one big, as a new Tax Policy Center report shows how several states are now generating more tax revenue from legal cannabis than they do from alcohol or tobacco. And so 2 states leading the way in this, Colorado and Washington. So we can just see that cannabis is represented in blue, alcohol in orange, and obviously Colorado, you can tax alcohol a lot more and make a lot more money than you're doing right now, with cigarettes coming in the yellow. And so very interesting to highlight this. And so you can grab the link below if you're interested, but also just wanted to share a bit more on the same story from Jeremy Burke. This one comes from Tax Policy Center, so just another perspective if you wanted to read more. But again, interesting thread on the pros and cons of how different states tax cannabis and what's working, as cannabis policy is one of the best examples of states serving as the lab of democracy, laboratory of democracy, and it is fascinating to watch unfold. And so Tax Policy Center, 19 states now have enacted taxes on recreational cannabis purchases, but the tax regimes vary quite a bit. And so Richard Coxier and Nikita Airy evaluate the pros and cons of each state approach in this new report. So again, not going to go through this, but just going to pause to read so that you can take a look. Otherwise, I will put the sources below if you wanted to check out where this came from. I'm just bringing it all the way back up to Jeremy Burke. And so down here, moving on to Florida, just going to do a Florida detour, especially based on the circumstances. And so praying for everyone out there in Florida based on Hurricane Ian and everything that they've just gone through. But just to relay this past week, following dispensation locations were approved from September 26th to the 30th. Curaleaf got a new dispensary in Ocala. Green Dragon got 2 new dispensaries in Orange Park and Tallahassee. Mauve, backed by Verano, got a new dispensary in Panama City Beach. Sanctuary Cannabis got a new dispensary in Jacksonville, and then VitaCann opened a new dispensary in South Miami. While the qualified patient count did increase this past week to 753,618, but that only represents a week-over-week increase of 85 patients because there was a damn hurricane. And so that is totally understandable. We can hopefully expect that to bounce back up as people recover. But the good news is that sales and dispensations from the week prior to were still very strong, as I imagine people were wanting to stock up just in case. And so next week it'll be interesting to see, how this is affected by the hurricane and all. So, we got to give Florida the benefit of the doubt right now as they recover. But with that, just highlighting all the MSOs that operate in the state, the number of dispensary locations that they have in operation, and then we've got the milligrams of THC sold this past week from the 23rd to the 29th, the number of milligrams of CBD sold, and the ounces of smokable flower. So you can pause to read, or you can grab the link below if you invest in any MSO in Florida and you want to keep track. But with that, just wanted to share this because, and I'm not trying to favor Trulieve, but essentially Trulieve, from my understanding, or at least from what I could find, was the only company that provided a bit of an update. So just wanted to share this. MJ Baggs, big question: do MSOs in Florida even get insurance coverage for hurricane damage, or do they get screwed over once again because of the federal status and stigma against cannabis? And so thank you, MJ Baggs, for asking this great question. As Trulieve then responded, we have robust insurance coverage for all locations, and we expect to have some recovery depending the damage and scope of impact, and we're still in the process of bringing stores back online. So that is great to hear from Trulieve. This is as of September 30th, 10:27 a.m. And then with that, Puff Daddy, thanks for sharing. And so again, not favoring Trulieve, but just this is the only information I could find on any single MSO in Florida. So Trulieve will have an additional 21 dispensaries coming back online and reopening tomorrow. Trulieve should have around 82 stores open throughout the state of Florida after circumstances. So that's at least great news for Trulieve. Hopefully, many of the other MSOs in the state are also able to bounce back and haven't suffered too much damage. But that should leave around 38 stores due to hurricane impacts. Obviously, this will take some time to open back up, but at least just happy to share that the majority have not been affected as badly. And so with that, dispensary status as of the 29th, 6:04 p.m., we can see dispensaries reopening on September 30th. All these listed here, and you can pause to read. If you're interested, pause to read. And so at least scale is working in Trulieve's favor in this circumstance. That's for sure. So on to other state news as Vermont cannabis sales start as of yesterday, October 1. So great job, Vermont. Love to see you launching your adult use program, and soon your citizens will see the benefits of more tax dollars, more jobs, and the other great things that ending cannabis prohibition finally brings, like access to a safer, non-addictive alternative. But also just going to simplify some of these sentences, as Saturday is day 1 for retail sales of adult use cannabis in Vermont. No need to add AKA marijuana. The state is allowing businesses to sell products containing THC, the main active intoxicating ingredient in cannabis, that also happens to have a lot of medicinal value based on thousands and thousands of studies. They didn't add that part in there, but that's also worth knowing because they want to make it sound worse than it actually is. More than 24 businesses throughout Vermont have applied to the state's Cannabis Control Board for retail permits. That's positive to hear, but the board has awarded only a handful so far. So still very small, but at least they're getting started. So I'm not going to go through much more because it sort of breaks down each of the counties that have dispensaries, but if you're interested, you can grab the link below. But moving on, as there's lots of news, in New York gets 900 plus cannabis dispensary applications from people harmed by drug war. Great. While you're celebrating getting 903 applications, how about launching the damn program already and getting these stores open for these folks that have been waiting over a year and a half due to your incompetent delays? As New York cannabis regulators closed the 1-month window for accepting applications for the state's first cannabis retailer licenses on Monday, 903 businesses run by people who've been harmed by the war on drugs have completed and submitted their forms. And so, now the application deadline is passed, regulators will give prospective licensees another 30 days, more wasted time, to review and make any amendments to their documents and proposals. The office will then start scoring the applications, make decisions about approvals, and complete interagency work to get shops open as soon as possible, with the goal still being to launch by the end of this year. So I still don't believe that they're going to get it done, but hopefully they can prove us wrong based on all the shit they've had to put us all through so far. And so applications for conditional retailers, or just wanted to add this because this is interesting to hear, applications for conditional retailer licenses will be judged on merits and eligibility criterion, which is better than judging based on skin color, not on a first come, first served basis. But we will see, as New Jersey sort of discriminated based on race, and we'll see if New York ends up following suit with that. And so just a breakdown of the name of the regions, the commuter adjusted population, and the maximum CAURD business licenses. And so this is the breakdown. But interestingly enough, just wanted to share this one from Syracuse.com, as state politicians are growing concerned about New York's legal cannabis rollout. So it's not just us, even the politicians are like, what the fuck are you guys doing, regulators? So not going to go through this, but we'll feature it down low if you wanted to read it. Made up of state senators and assembly members, New York's Legislative Commission on Rural Resources is seeking answers from the Office of Cannabis Management. Essentially, what the fuck's taking so long? Why have you not launched already? Get this going. And so just happy to share that at least some people are paying attention to the incompetence and the constant delays, and hopefully this will encourage getting everything started by the end of this year, as they've told us that they would. And so with that, a few more stories. Tom Engel sharing new out of Kentucky, as Governor Andy Beshear released a report from the Medical Cannabis Advisory Committee he formed, showing that 99% of respondents in a survey, even in Kentucky, it conducted, supported legal access, and 0 people expressing opposition in the 4 public meetings it held. So that's fascinating. More on that story if you wanted to read through, but love to see that out of Kentucky, another state that is looking to at least reform their laws for medical, but obviously facing delays just based on incompetent politicians as well, as we see in many states. But with that, Tom Engel sharing new poll of Missouri, very likely voters finds that the cannabis legalization ballot initiative is ahead, but with under 50% support and nearly 1 out of 5 people still undecided. And so while these results might not be what we're expecting, take it with a grain of salt, because it is still just a poll, and ultimately polls only indicate those who actually even respond, or those who have the courage to even respond honestly. Because even looking at my past self, I've responded to certain polls dishonestly just because I was a dumbass, and for whatever reason, I don't know. Glad to say that I'm not that same person, but this is the question that we will expect to be on the ballot in Missouri. And so looking at the results right now, 35% oppose, while 48% support and 17% are undecided. And so obviously this undecided is a big factor, and if these undecided were actually against it, they'd likely already vote oppose. And so there's a good chance a lot of these 17% are likely going to support, or they just don't want to admit, but will likely support. So again, we'll have to wait until November, but I'm willing to bet that Missouri is going to vote and get this passed on the ballot. And so with that, Tom Engel sharing new an economic analysis of Arkansas's cannabis legalization ballot initiative projects that it could lead to nearly $1 billion in annual cannabis sales, generate more than $460 million in tax revenue over 5 years, and create up to 6,400 jobs. Who in Arkansas would not want that, right? So more on that link below if you wanted to check it out. But these are the projections as well in a picture. A nice little visual that you can take in there. And so with that, a few more stories. So Tom Engel just relaying again, Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers told students that legalizing cannabis depends on their showing up to the polls to vote. So seems like he is serious in his effort to get that on the ballot. We would love to see that. And then adding that Illinois' governor has joked with him that he doesn't mind the state's delaying, as it means more tax revenue for his own coffers. And so love to see this sort of comical but real playback, because obviously Wisconsin is losing out when their citizens go to Illinois to buy their cannabis. And so hopefully he will get this on the ballot. So more on that story below if you wanted to check it out. Well, last few ones, Todd Harrison sharing this one out of Virginia. And they write it as if this is a bad thing. It's extremely easy to get a cannabis prescription in Virginia. Cannabis is effectively legal as long as you can afford the medical appointment. Great. So hopefully this will help reduce the amount of people that died from overdoses, because last year when 100,000 Americans died from overdoses, that is an epidemic in itself, and that should draw a lot of awareness, although we have not seen that. And so more on this article below, but just highlighting that, yeah, Virginia, you're doing the right thing. Make it easy so that anyone that needs it can get access to a safer, non-addictive alternative for pain relief, inflammation relief, whatever they need cannabis for. And so with that, MJ Biz Daily sharing that Nevada will open cannabis lounge application window October 14th, as they will start accepting applications next month for businesses seeking licenses to open consumption lounges statewide, as the Nevada Cannabis Compliance Board said that the application window, the 14th to the 27th, will be the only opportunity to apply for those licenses according to the Pahrump Valley Times. And so more on this below if you wanted to pause to read, but good to see that, as this was something that we heard rumors about in early 2021. Took a long time, but sooner than later, this will at least hopefully help the Nevada market as well, attract more sales, and as more tourism does pick up. And so on to some MSO news. Curaleaf Inc. shares this October. Curaleaf has partnered with Impact One Pink to offer exclusive breast cancer action month pre-rolls, $1 from each sale donated to those impacted by breast cancer. And so these will be available in Oregon, Massachusetts, Maryland, Maine, Florida, Nevada from October 1st to the 31st. So we love to see this from Curaleaf, because even despite the stigma that the government puts on these companies and the shit that they have to deal with operating with both hands tied behind their backs, they are still doing what they can to give back, even if it's causes not related to giving back to those harmed by the war on drugs that MSOs had nothing to do with. It was all the government implementing, right? And so just happy to share Curaleaf helping out in different ways that they can. With that, from benzinga.com, Cresco Lab, Sunnyside, Schaumburg, cannabis dispensary workers join Teamsters Local 77. And apparently this is a union. So workers at Cresco Lab, Sunnyside Dispensary in Schaumburg, Illinois, have voted to join Teamsters Local 777. The facility is the first Sunnyside location to affiliate with the Teamsters Union. This is the third cannabis election we have won in the town of Schaumburg alone, said Jim Glimko, Local 77 president. We have momentum on our side in this industry, and it's an honor to officially represent the passionate, visionary, dedicated groups of people at this dispensary. And so we love to hear this. And so on top of that, unions are gaining momentum in the cannabis industry as the number of dispensaries joining either the Teamsters or the United Food and Commercial Workers continue to grow. And at least unions are one way that we can try and give as much fairness back to everyone in the industry, as opposed to top-down social equity focuses, as a union approach has stood the test of time much better than top-down socialist policy approach. And so with that, good to share that other MSOs, as throughout September, workers at the Trulieve North Shore Medical Cannabis Dispensary voted to join UFCW Local 1776. In August, dispensaries Loom Cannabis in Monroe, Ascend Wellness in Boston, and Verano's Zen Leaf in the neighborhood of Pilsen also became unionized. And this list covers just the last 2 months. And so this is an industry with a lot of money being made in a short period of time, but no matter how many players there are in the industry, we have the same goal at all of them, said Peter Finn, Teamsters Food Processing Division Director. Turn these jobs into prosperous middle-class careers with a strong Teamster contract. And obviously states that have legalized cannabis are already on their way to doing this versus states that are stuck in their old ways and are not benefiting whatsoever. And so more info, I think that's pretty much it for the article, but you can grab the link below if you wanted to read more. With that, Trulieve to open new dispensary in Sierra Vista, Arizona. Grand opening on October 1 as of yesterday, with celebratory events on October 8th. So good to see Trulieve continuing to expand, especially outside of their key state of Florida. And so good to see them build their presence of Trulieve branded dispensaries, not just Harvest, in Arizona as well. So more, you can pause to read about that. Lastly, Air Wellness to hold their third quarter 2022 conference call on November 10th at 8:30 a.m. Good to see Air Wellness getting prepped, as it's essentially a month away that we're going to see Green Thumb kick off MSO earnings, and I have no doubt that Ben Kovler wants to keep his positive cash flow streak coming, and hopefully we'll see some developments from the other MSOs, hopefully Trulieve integrating their Harvest assets and getting closer to cash flow positive, as they had been for a very long time, as well as Cresco and Columbia Care getting that deal done. That would be phenomenal and a big boost for the industry as well. And so lastly, just want to share some studies as Marijuana Moment highlights. I think I featured the study last week in Forbes, but a bit more info to deep dive on it. Medical cannabis helps patients reduce use of addictive opioid painkillers, study finds. And this should be plastered on mainstream news outlets everywhere. It save a lot of American lives, but again, nothing is about public health. It's always about control from the government. And so another study has found that giving people legal access to medical cannabis can help patients reduce their use of opioid painkillers or cease use altogether. That's huge, without compromising quality of life. The study, published in the peer-reviewed journal Substance Use and Misuse on Wednesday, surveyed registered medical cannabis patients in Florida, asking questions about their consumption habits and how cannabis has affected their use of traditional pharmaceuticals. Researchers at the firm Emerald Coast Research and Florida State University College of Medicine asked 2,183 patients who were recruited at dispensaries across the Sunshine State to fill out 66-item cross-sectional surveys to learn more about the role of medical cannabis legalization amid the opioid overdose epidemic. And so if you don't understand why now, this is why Big Pharma pays Schumer and McConnell to delay any passing of cannabis reform, because ultimately that's going to affect Big Pharma, the biggest lobbyists in America, who essentially own the politicians. And so 9 in 10 patients, 90.6%, said that they found cannabis to be very or extremely helpful in treating their medical condition. 90.6%. That's huge. And 88.7% said that cannabis was very or extremely important to their quality of life. The findings suggest that some medical cannabis patients decrease opioid use without harming quality of life or health functioning soon after the legalization of medical cannabis. And so there's more if you wanted to pause to read or grab the link. But again, just wanted to share that as this is a great finding, and this, again, should be plastered on every mainstream outlet. And obviously, we know why it's not, but we keep fighting this fight, and just love to hear that. And so with a few more studies, Todd Harrison shares a study found that medical cannabis oil significantly reduced agitation over placebo in patients suffering from behavioral disturbances related to dementia with non-serious side effects. So again, just seeing the benefits of medical cannabis oil reducing agitation over placebo. So more on this article if you wanted to grab the link below, but just sharing these studies as they come along because there's plenty of them. So thanks, Todd, for sharing this one. A study showed that most of high THC extracts demonstrate anti-cancer activity, while only certain selected extracts showed anti-inflammatory activity. And so obviously beneficial if any THC extracts have a role in anti-cancer activity as well as anti-inflammatory. But obviously if we deschedule cannabis, we'd be able to research this closer and find exactly which compounds are anti-cancer and anti-inflammatory and double down on that and help people get these, the non-addictive medicinal alternative that they need for whatever medical conditions that they have. And so last one from Jeremy Burke, sharing this from Bloomberg. Japan, which has these strict laws against the use of cannabis, should consider approving the import, manufacture, and use of medicines derived from cannabis, a health ministry panel says, especially after hearing the last studies. Obviously, every country in the world would benefit from this, let alone launching adult use programs as well as medical programs, the jobs, the tax revenue, all the benefits. And so, seems like we're at a tipping point, and I'm going to keep pushing until we get there, but Japan should consider allowing medical cannabis, health panel says. Doesn't mean that they're going to, but they ought to consider it as it is the right thing to do. And that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of this. And what did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video, please just leave a like on it, subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Wednesday for a midweek update. Have a great weekend, everybody.